In the wake of the United Healthcare CEO execution that recently took place in New York City, Bill Burr has sounded off on his podcast about corporate greed in America and how much of a scam healthcare is in the country. As Bill has continued to give his opinion on the matter, political commentator and courageous capitalist Ben Shapiro wasted no time before responding and saying how he thinks Bill Burr is completely wrong along with morally bankrupt. And he also shares an anecdote on how he went to see Bill Burr live, and it was one of the worst comedy shows he's ever been to. About a month ago, I covered Ben Shapiro's negative comments towards Bill Burr that he made when he was on the Club Random podcast with Bill Maher, and hypothesized why I thought he felt so strongly opposed to Bill Burr's statements from his own appearance on Club Random. Spoiler alert, I was kinda right. Anyway, the past comments Ben made were a brief minute on an hour-and-a-half long podcast, but Ben recently made an entire video on his channel that was just shy of an hour long, titled Bill Burr Goes Full Asshole, where he's a lot more direct about his negative feelings towards Bill and spends a lot more time trashing him, which is weird because I thought Ben Shapiro didn't care about our feelings. Anyway, I know you guys are wondering what the right opinion is here, and I am going to give it to you. To briefly reiterate what I mentioned in the intro, Ben Shapiro, in his incredibly high Jewish IQ, is no stranger to talking negatively about Bill Burr. If you're not up to speed on what he said previously, then I'll go ahead and refresh your memory very briefly.
Am I allowed to shit on like the other guests you've had on the show or not?
Of course.
Really? Okay, so Bill Burr was a fucking asshole on this show.
My show?
Yeah.
That was so long ago.
I know, but it pissed me off. Really, it was quite terrible.
So,
now, the other thing that ticked me off was where he started, essentially getting high-handed about, well, you don't know anything about the Middle East and you can't speak about this, but I love the protesters and the protesters are great.
Were you funny in school?
So Ben Shapiro was very upset about the way Bill Burr told Bill Maher that he doesn't know anything about the Middle East. This was not a surprise to me, given the fact that Ben Shapiro takes Israel's dick up his ass on a regular basis, given the fact that he's an Orthodox Jew. So in his eyes, anything other than shilling for Israel in the war in the Middle East is considered morally detestable. Furthermore, as mentioned previously, Bill Burr went on a rant about the United Healthcare CEO and gave his immediate reaction to the events that took place in New York City alongside comedian Paul Verzi.
Paul, what's going on in New York? We were just talking about it. That CEO got fucking whacked.
Oh my God, dude.
You know what's funny? I was sitting there reading an article, guy. They go, "Oh my God, he's such a great guy. He had a wife and kids, and he's such a great guy." And then you find out he and the other guys he's working for are getting sued for $121 million for dumping a stock and not letting the other people know. It's like, there's your motive.
Dude, anytime I hear CEO of one of the biggest healthcare, it's like, you don't wish it on anybody. You feel horrible for his kids and his wife, of course. But dude, when I saw that and I saw what was
what is more heartless than a fucking CEO of a corporation? The decision in healthcare, the decisions that they make. This is the thing. I'm not saying what happened should have happened, but I'm just, for them to be like, oh, this is like, why would anybody want to do this? It's like they're denying claims and people are dying. The food supply is poison. It's like the fucking motive out there is wild.
So I think Bill and Paul were pretty spot on here, and I feel similarly to them on the matter. Obviously, not every CEO of every company is automatically a bad person just because they're a CEO. You don't wish this on anybody if you're a sane and well-adjusted person, and you obviously feel sad for the dude's family, but at the same time, like Bill said, most of these dudes are pretty evil people themselves. Bill also, just a few days later on his podcast, made additional statements about the CEO and the media covering it that were a lot more direct and well thought out.
You know what's annoying me about this kid who killed this CEO is none of these news programs are talking about the incredible lack of empathy from the general public about this because of how these insurance companies treat people when they are at their most vulnerable after we've all given them our money every fucking month and now we finally need you and all you do is deny us. And then these pussies and all of these things are taking the pictures of their CEOs off their websites. You know, I got to be honest with you, okay? I love that that fucking CEOs are fucking afraid right now. You should be. By and large, you're all a bunch of selfish, greedy pieces of shit, and a lot of you are mass murderers. You just don't pull the trigger. That's why it looks clean. That's why these people look, oh my God, oh, he was just, walking into a hotel. It's like, okay, well, what was his job? What did he do? What was the results of it?
Bill definitely had a lot more venom and ice in his veins for this one, and these rants led to Bill Burr being covered by a lot of the press for his opinions on the United Healthcare shooting. The clip of Bill and Paul was actually played on CNN, where an entire panel of so-called experts and journalists weighed in on what he said. Obviously, the panel misconstrued what Bill said intentionally and pretended that they did not understand why people were so frustrated, but the comments on CNN's video were surprisingly pro-Bill Burr, and it seems like most people have gotten behind what Bill Burr said and agreed with his general sentiment. Then Ben Shapiro got wind of what Bill Burr had to say about the killing, and he proceeded to go on a rant about how he thinks Bill is completely wrong, and also how he saw him live, and how it was one of the worst shows he's ever been to.
Hey, so Bill Burr, I used to really enjoy his work. I mean, on occasion, I still enjoy his work. He's a comedian, which means he's very hit or miss. I actually bought a ticket for me and my wife and two of our friends to go see Bill Burr at the Hard Rock Casino down here in Hollywood, Florida. And I have to say, it was one of the worst shows I ever saw in my life, because he got up there and Bill Burr has become woked. So this entire show that he did in Hollywood, Florida, it was so bad that he got frustrated with the audience. The audience was not laughing at his jokes because his jokes were basically about how Floridians were a bunch of anti-gay racists. Floridians were like, that's not true. There are a lot of gay people who live down here and a lot of Hispanics and black people who live down here. And the reason was he was totally disconnected from the audience. Well, that disconnect has continued. And now he is proclaiming that he is very happy that CEOs are walking around in fear for their lives. Bill Burr is a piece of... Okay, well, what he is saying here is truly evil. He's truly evil. He's saying you should live in fear if you're the CEO of a company and that company does things that Bill Burr deems to be bad. We have laws on the books, for example, that prevent things like fraud. Okay? We have laws on the books that prevent things like embezzlement. We have laws on the books that punish criminal activity. If you don't like the system, and many people don't, the proper response to that system would be legislation. In a democratic republic, the way that you fix problems is you have open discussions of the details of those problems, and then you try to craft regulatory or legal fixes. You do not say that it is a good thing that CEOs should live in fear of their lives because Bill Burr deems them morally inferior.
So there's a lot to unpack here. I had to chop it up a little just in case our favorite pro-free speech political commentator Ben Shapiro decided to copyright strike this video. Ben says that Bill is championing the murder of CEOs, but he very clearly said with Paul Verzi that he didn't think it should happen.
I'm not saying what happened should have happened, but I'm just, for them to be like, oh, this is like, why would anybody want to do this?
Obviously, when Bill says these people should be afraid, he's a lot more aggressive, but for Ben to sit here and pretend like you can easily vote to change the laws so that these big companies have to operate in the best interest of the individuals is so fucking laughable, it's actually insane. These huge corporations and insurance companies have been financially raping the American people for decades and decades, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. I would never promote murder, but I'm also not surprised that somebody decided to take out the CEO of a massive healthcare company that has certainly caused a plethora of harm to regular everyday citizens of the country. Ben also makes a point to trash Bill Burr and say that he saw him bomb and end his show early in Hollywood, Florida, because he was making fun of Florida for having a lot of bigots and racists in the state. Now, I live in Florida, and I saw Bill Burr perform similar bits making fun of Floridians at the Hard Rock Cafe located in Tampa, Florida, and these bits went over very well because most Floridians have the ability to laugh at themselves. A lot of Floridians know that not all of them are homophobic bigots who hate black people, but they do know that those exceptions exist in the state, so they all laughed because of how absurd they are. Bill's audience is a mixed bag, but he definitely leans left nowadays. Whether or not that is mostly influenced by him living in LA and now being married to a self-proclaimed feminist or not, it doesn't really matter to me or a lot of his other fans because he's a great comedian, and as long as he continues to be funny, we'll continue to support him. Ben also makes a point to call Bill Burr a member of the elite in our society.
Bill Burr doing his blue-collar class routine act is a bunch of horse. Bill Burr is worth $14 million, and and he makes his money making crap movies for Netflix at this point.
Which is so rich coming from him. Bill Burr is a comedian, a court jester. Ben points out his net worth of $14 million as a mark against him and how he's so out of touch. It's like, Ben, have you forgotten that we all have access to Google and can see how much your net worth is as well? Not to mention the fact that you own an entire fucking media company? Brother, if you disagree with Bill's rhetoric and think it's dangerous, just say that. But you can lay off of the emotional rants about how out of touch he is when you're literally the pot calling the kettle black. You're not a Floridian. You're from Burbank, California, and it shows. Bill Burr is someone who came from a blue-collar upbringing, who's worked regular jobs. He's worked in a warehouse. I don't think you've ever gotten your hands as dirty as Bill has gotten them, and he worked his ass off for 30 years to get where he is. So please, take a step back and chill the fuck out, dude. You are the embodiment of the Spider-Man pointing meme, so do us all a favor and just shut your mouth and lick the boot of corporate America a little more quietly. Also, Ben pointed out how out of touch Bill Burr was when standing in solidarity with the students who were pro-Hamas.
And the reason was he was totally disconnected from the audience. Well, that disconnect has continued. You'll remember that he appeared on Bill Maher's show where he declared solidarity with the pro-Hamas students on campus.
Not to say I agree with Bill Burr here, but I predicted Ben had a huge problem with this given the fact that he's very pro-Israel, and so he built his entire argument for Bill Burr being an asshole around this one issue. If you read the comment section on Ben Shapiro's post, you can see a lot of people calling him out for his bullshit and even siding with Bill Burr's perspective. I thought this was rich given the fact that a lot of these people are obviously regular listeners and supporters of Ben and the Daily Wire, so if even they are taking issue with Ben here, then that shows that he is way more out of touch than he claims Bill Burr is. The main takeaway I got from this is that Ben is a bootlicker who is completely disconnected from reality, and even if Bill Burr is disconnected from reality too, at least he still occasionally shoots a three-pointer and voices an opinion that a lot of people in America deeply resonate with. I've said in the past I have respect for Ben Shapiro, and I do, but he's completely off on this one, in my opinion of course. I know we've been covering a bit of comedy slop lately on the channel, but my next video is going to be my top 10 favorite comedians of all time, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it and seeing what you guys think about this video. Anyway, what do you guys think? Do you agree with Bill Burr here, or do you think he's wrong? Also, do you disagree with Ben Shapiro, or do you think he's actually correct in this situation about Bill Burr? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you made it to the end of the video, I want to bring your attention to my second YouTube channel. If you want to continue supporting me and you want to get to know me better as a person and see a more human side to me, make sure to check out my second channel, Nate Roscoe RLP, to see me talk about real issues in a fun and goofy way. I'd love to see some of you guys in the comments on some of those videos too. Your insights and opinions in the comments are always greatly appreciated. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching the video to the end, leaving a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribing if you're new to the channel. That's all I got for you guys today. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.